of them and what they are, and so I can help start talking to Jude about sensationalize and marketing them, and we're
Here
gonna
we
do it
go.
soon.
What's up, profitable stylists? We are talking about the difference between the left side and the right side of Bernard's face.
Yeah, and my symmetrical.
We're
We
getting
are
symmetrical.
we are talking about color today, and I'm pretty excited about this because I started to ask Eddie some questions before we got started, and I said, okay, stop. Let's do this live. Let's not fake it on the live. Let's make it real. So we're going to talk about semi, demi, and permanent color. Semi-permanent color, demi-permanent color, and permanent color.
And Bernard has all the answers. I don't have any pressure today to say correct things whatsoever.
Complete opposite. Uh, I'm not ashamed of my lack of knowledge here. I'm going to tell you, in my old age, my
My
old
old
wisdom,
age.
I've become comfortable with who I am and where I'm at in life, and I think one of the most comfortable things that I've come to grips with is that I don't know everything, and I'm okay with it. But I do know some things, and I know one of my strengths is to explain and teach what I do know. I can put it in a real organized fashion out there, but I'm still learning a lot. And this is going to be a fun one for me because I want to kind of do my take or understanding or knowledge on something, and then Eddie's got this deeper chemical understanding from the manufacturer, how it's made, and some of you guys are going to love it, and some of you guys are going to be like, I don't know why isn't he speaking English kind of thing.
Oh, that why am I not speaking English other than the normal? Why am I not speaking
Right,
English?
right. I know. Yeah, I know English is tough for you to begin with, but the I don't think many people use semi-permanent anymore, huh? I think people misuse the term
uh,
semi-permanent, like a fanciful rinse or something you pour in your hair and it changes the color for today, or maybe even colored hairsprays from the beauty supply for Halloween.
they're
Wouldn't
more
that be considered
popular
a semi?
than ever nowadays. Actually, they're actually trending.
See, I don't see them. We don't use them at all in our salon, semi-permanent.
Yeah.
And when you
Well,
say semi-permanent, do you mean just like a fanciful rinse or roux rinse?
so those are the traditional. Those are the traditional semi-permanent colors.
Yes.
But let me ask you this way: do you sell any kind of blue shampoo or violet-based shampoos for blonde clients?
Yes.
Those are semi-permanents.
Okay.
So that's what it's evolved to nowadays. Whereas, yeah, once
Mm,
upon a time, a client would come in, and generally speaking, those were your weekly roller set clients.
yes.
And because
Because you
they,
saw them every week and they didn't shampoo their own hair at
right,
home.
they didn't shampoo their own hair at home anyways. So that's why we had those rinses that we would do back at the shampoo bowl real quick, just to keep their hair, their natural color looking fresh, looking bright.
Slightly stain the gray, darker, possibly. It was never 100% coverage, though,
No,
right?
no, it's never 100% coverage. It's only a semi-permanent color is only ever meant to last a few
Between
shampoos, a
shampoos.
handful of shampoos. Yeah, if
Yeah.
even.
Between shampoos, but then even still not completely cover. Because I remember beginning days of me doing hair in school. We did a lot of shampoo sets, and that's exactly what we do. We take that roux or fanciful rinse, squirt it over their head at the shampoo bowl. The drier the hair was, the more it would absorb. But I remember the grays would just turn slightly, like the
Hmm.
gray would turn into about like this. It didn't almost didn't matter what color we used. It just stained it a little slightly tanner color.
A semi-permanent color is very the size of the color, the molecule.
Molecule.
It's very large. It's so large that it cannot go into your hair shaft, so it sits on top. So it's almost like putting a jacket on. It's like putting an overlay or an overcoat on, and that visual effect changes temporarily what the hair color looks like. So that's what's popular about semi-permanent rinses. Now, in today's evolution, in today's world, what we know as semi-permanent colors, the most recognizable one is a violet or a blue-based shampoo to keep blonde hair nice and looking, toned so it doesn't turn brassy. But there is also red and browns. And there
Right.
is and blondes. There is actually golden blonde semi-permanent colors as well too, but the blues and the violets are the more popular that people go to.
So for somebody with, tell me if I know we're bouncing around a little bit right here, but you talked about molecule size. I had heard one time that red, out of all the color molecules, was the larger one, and that's why it's larger than most of the other color molecules, and it's the reason why reds fade the fastest. Is that
It's
true?
it's the middle one, and it's the middle one. So blue. Okay, so your primary colors, blue, red, yellow.
Yep.
So blue is the largest molecule and the deepest and the darkest of the three. Red is your middle size, and then yellow is the smallest one. And that's
Mm,
why it's such a pain in the butt, because so it takes it's 3, 2, 1. One blue molecule, you need two red to equal one blue. You need three yellow to equal one blue. So it's red being the middle size. It perfectly fits halfway into the hair shaft, and then it halfway sits on top of the hair shaft. And because it exists in both planes, both topically and embedded in, that's why it's such a pain of the butt. Also, if you think about it, 80% of the population is a brunette, is a
right.
natural level 4, 5, or 6, or a 5, 6, or 7, depending on which
Naturally or colored?
naturally. No, naturally speaking. And that is the contributing pigment, the underlining pigment that exists at every single level of hair. The red primary pigment is prominent in that, natural levels, 4, 5, 6, or
Right.
5, 6, 7. And so that's why red is the hardest color to deal with all the time. That's why you always see a client who's going blonde always has some brassiness. They have to get through the red phase before they can get into the blonde. That's why they always look orange, or they always look coppery or brassy, so to say. Or when you're staying on a brunette, that's why the traditional hairdresser joke is, the client always comes and, the client has green hair and she looks at you and she'll still say, I see red, and then even with black hair, that's why you always have that blue black, or you always see that shiny, massively shiny black, or you have matte black. It's always one or the other. So it really is dependent. But no, red is the middle size. It's the
So
most hardest to deal with.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions about Demi in a minute, but I want to see if you could summarize as short as possible the difference in semi, demi, and permanent color. If you had to just elevator pitch real
Oh
quick,
yeah,
just the three as short as you can, the difference in the three. Go.
super easy. Semi permanent color is shampoo to shampoo, or only a couple of shampoos. A demi permanent color is traditionally ammonia free, and it's deposit only, generally used for gray blending or toning. Permanent color is lift and deposit. You are physically permanently changing your natural color to whatever your target color of your choice is.
Up or down in color, lighter or darker.
Okay, correct. That the easiest way to explain it.
Okay. Okay. So I want to talk about some of the outliers or forces. One of the learning experiences for me one time, and there's a few hairdresser like just phrases that even hairdressers don't get. My favorite that we try to remember and teach to newer hairdressers is color doesn't lighten color. You're familiar
Correct.
with this?
Yeah, color doesn't lighten color. Yes. All right. Yeah.
Well, I don't think a lot of hairdressers know what that means. They hear it until they actually make the mistake
Mm.
and they coloring someone's hair, they color it whatever color, and then they rinse it out, shampoo it. Then the customer complains a day or two later and says it's too dark, and they want to go lighter. And now they started. My color is a good example. In the middle somewhere, right? We could go. I could go darker. I could go lighter with my hair with permanent color. If it were not colored, if it was virgin hair, but if it's colored this color, you can only go darker and not lighter with permanent color
With
because
permanent color, correct.
right, because permanent color doesn't lighten. When we say color doesn't lighten color, it means color doesn't lighten not just any person's color, but artificial color that's on a person's head.
That
Are you
and
with me?
that's the definition, and that's the language that gets confusion a lot. So, a permanent hair color, the action of a permanent. I'm going to try to sound like a textbook definition. A permanent hair color diffuses the natural melanin, the natural pigment in your hair, to make room for the artificial pigment.
And you need that room. That's what I'm amazed at. That's what I started to learn before we got on here earlier. Because let me tell you, one of my earliest experiences with color that started to really open up my mind to, oh, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those store sold brands like Just for Men, how they can change a guy's color in like 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, the
And
box colors, the over the counter colors. Okay, yeah, sure.
yeah,
Okay.
which I found fascinating. And my mom had a beauty supply when I was a kid, Carol's Beauty Supply. So if I wanted to change my color as a teenage kid, she would say, "Here, use this. It won't. It's not permanent." You know, basically, she was giving me a demi deposit only. One time, I fell asleep. I went to go lay out in the sun in the backyard on a towel. I put the color in. I gotta wait. I'm thinking, what do I do? I go sit outside. There's no cell phones when I'm a kid, you know. So I probably brought a book out there thinking I might read, and I just lay it back on a towel in the sun, fall asleep. Like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, no idea. But I was just trying to make my hair just a little darker, richer. I wasn't gray yet in these early in the teens or 20s, but when I went to go rinse it out, I freaked out a little because it was darker than usual, right? Because I'm guessing the heat opened up the cuticle layer, drove it in a little darker. It dried on my hair. So just a few things happened, longer processing time. But the crazy thing is, a good thing happened. People loved it. I got so many compliments about how even. So I got the experience of when some people love highlights, some people don't. So the people that maybe my hair looked a little tattered at the ends from the sun, it's probably the middle of the summer, and it was starting to look a little sun bleached and uneven, which can be a look that people like. But by even it all up, I look different than everybody else, and it was darker, and people tend to like it. So I got all these compliments like, "Oh my God, your hair looks so good. What did you do?" I'm thinking all I did was make it a little darker. So then it fades back to my normal color. Where then years later, I start doing color on people's heads and they fade to that lighter color. So we're going to go into so many things here about why that happens. But that's
To
where I
add
got the
on to
first.
that too,
Go ahead.
everything you said with sitting longer, the heat, from the sun, all of those factors. Another thing and this is where color starts getting complicated really quickly, because in its base form, it's very simple, it's very straightforward. But then there's all these variables that start going in. There is also the quality of hair color. So there is progressive dye and non-progressive dye. There's
Mm,
aniline derivative and non-aniline derivative. So what that means is potentially what may have happened, you may have had a progressive dye molecule in there, which means the longer you sit, the longer it keeps working for. It doesn't just stop. Whereas a lot of professional color, after 30 minutes, after 45 minutes, after an hour, whatever it is, it won't deposit any more pigment anymore. So that
really.
could have been another factor in addition to everything else that you said.
You know what's crazy is the ones that stop working should be that should be sold to the public in grocery stores so they don't screw up their hair. and the and the progressive dyes should be left to the hairdressers to judge when we take it off so we can take it off at different stages, in my opinion, on the surface.
It's so much more expensive though. It all comes down to cost. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the quality and the cost of something, right? Creating stop action in color sounds like a no-brainer.
But that
But
costs more.
there's a cost involved, and
So there's
it's a higher
cost,
quality.
there's safety, and that's why it turns
You
out
need
better in the
better
salon.
ingredients, you need better ratios, you need better blah blah
So,
blah.
so knowing that permanent color, this is one of the hardest things for me to explain to new stylists is that if you take color and just put it on, the trouble these days is it's rare that you have somebody that comes in a salon that's never had color on their head or doesn't have color on their hair now. Almost everybody's been to another salon, they tried to do something, or they played with it themselves. And so you are rarely dealing with virgin hair these days. But if you do have the rare opportunity to deal with virgin hair and you put color on somebody's head, especially, and that's the next step is like that whole head of hair, like this brown hair behind me. She could have color in her whole head, but she comes in 3 weeks. This much of her growth on the scalp is virgin hair. That's going to turn a different color than everything else, depending on what you do. So, what I started to learn was, okay, wow, color can go can make my hair lighter or the client's hair lighter or darker depending on what I pick, and only within a few levels usually. Like you're not going to take black hair to platinum blonde with color. You need to get into the bleaching stages. Although you can take blonde hair and go more than 2 or 3 levels. If you're going darker, you can turn it black if you want to. Maybe some fillers and other situations going on also, and depending on how healthy it is and if it's a healthier blonde and not so damaged that it's not going to hold color. I know there's so many. I'm touching on so many experience levels.
So now you're getting into the realm of developers and how strong of a developer can you use to activate the color. Traditionally speaking, in most states, 40 or 50 volume peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, 12 or 15.
When you say most states, are you talking about legal?
United States. Yeah, because the FDA and OSHA have oversight. The government has now taken oversight on our industry as of it's been about maybe 15 years now, something like that. 15 years ago, 16 years ago. The government, the FDA and OSHA came in and said, look, man, you guys are out of control. We need to just make it, we need to set a standard. We need to put a standard, right?
That's funny.
Basically, it's meant, we want your money. And because you used to be able to buy, well, you still can in certain states, get 100 volume peroxide, pure hydrogen peroxide. And then you would break it down by, you would dilute it using...
to make what you want.
To make the developer strength that you want using distilled water. That's what I was trying to think of. So yeah, you can make your own strength. Now, since all these rules have gone into effect, legally speaking, in most states, the strongest developer you can use is only 40 volume or 50 volume. And the manufacturer will actually pre-bottle for you 40 or 50 that you could purchase. With that said, a 40 volume, whatever the strength of the developer is, like 40 volume, for example, means it can lift up potentially up to 4 levels. So in like your example, if you have a virgin hair and if you got black hair and you put 40 volume, if you're a level 1, the hair color works in a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the darkest, 10 being blonde, 1 being black, 10 being blonde. Or if you're in the Europeans color system, level 1 doesn't exist. Level 2 is darkest brown. So, and then my joke is always, why is there never a level 2 in American hair color, but in European hair color, there is, only level 1. There is no, in American level color, there's only 1N and then it goes to 3N. But in European level color systems, it only goes 2N. There is no 1N. So the Europeans don't think black is a natural color that exists in nature. So if you take all 3 primary colors together and you mix them together, you get darkest brown. You don't get black. And then the North American, mentality of it, they're like, nah, to hell with that. Black exists. It's black. So it's this weird thing. Anyways, I got on a tangent because I get excited. But the point is, the developer strength equals how many levels of lift you can get. And that's why in one sitting, you can't just go from dark to blonde.
Oh, you can. I've seen it done.
It's a process. It's a process.
Yeah.
But with permanent hair color in one shot, no way.
No, I know. You shouldn't. And that's one of the things we've been preaching in our salon lately is just say no. Sometimes you can just say no to a client if they want you to. That's another week, though, where we're going to tell a client that, Yeah, we can do anything you want to do. We have magic in our chair. But let me get back to this other thing that
Oh,
I
and the
found
virgin
fascinating.
thing. I just remember too on the virgin
Okay,
thing.
go ahead.
Depending on how advanced of a colorist you claim yourself to be, there is no such thing as virgins. Because as soon as you go outside, the sun
Right.
photosynthesizes the natural melanin in your hair, and that technically speaking is a form of
Bleach.
coloring and bleaching, right? And I will even personally argue, and I'm sure in the comment section, this is probably going to get some, I don't know, it is harder to deal with virgin hair than it is pre-colored hair. I would much rather have a new client come in that's been chemically processed than have a client come in with virgin hair.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's really annoying to deal with a virgin.
so we've been doing hair replacement for a long time, and this taught me a lot about Demi and Permanent. We have these men that come in, and so they only have the hair here, and we put a hair system
Mm.
on top. And a lot of times, that's where a man starts to gray, like me, and we don't like this gray, and we want to go a little darker. We don't want to color it all, so a Demi works good because it doesn't always cover it all if you're kind of, I guess, strategic. But when I put it on there, I want when it does fade, I don't want to look like a man who colors their hair with permanent color. The problem is it, like you said, it removes some color, then it deposits some color. So then when it fades, I fade to that color that it removed to, which tends to be a more brassy color, sometimes orangey, yellowy, golden. I believe that's what was happening
Oh,
with,
okay.
yeah. So a lot of celebrities, like President Trump, his hair was all orange. I believe it's because he tried to color his hair himself for so many years, and then when it would fade to this orangey color. But on the side of my head, I color, but it's not permanent color because I want deposit only. There has been never any lifting. So when this fades off, it usually gets cut off before it fades because we're cutting my hair. A man with shorter hair is getting it cut faster than it's fading a lot of times. But even if it does fade, we started putting demi permanent on men because we didn't want that to fade to some yellow, golden, orangey color. The few browns that are left there, I want the browns to stay brown, and I want the grays. I was going to call them blondes. I want the grays to get stained a little bit darker, but then when they fade, just look normal instead of some weird orange color. So that was my love about a demi permanent, but I didn't call it a demi. I called it a deposit only color because I thought there was permanent deposit only color also. And and that's what I want you to tell me. Is it possible to have a deposit only permanent color? That's what we started getting into before the live
Yeah,
started. And
yeah,
you told
okay.
me no. And I want to know, is there any workaround? Because when I fell asleep in the sun, it was it stayed on my head longer than any other permanent color I ever used. And maybe it was the heat. Because I know you said permanent color has to have ammonia to help lift. So the ammonia peroxide and then the color dye. So is there a possibility that you can synthesize or replace ammonia with heat or something else and make a demi a permanent, a
No.
deposit only color, act like a. Tell me about that in your opinion.
I understand what you're saying. I follow what you're saying. Uh, you have, okay, you have your natural color that exists inside your hair. You have two versions of it. You have the surface hair color that you can visually see, and then you have the underlining pigment that you don't visually see, but it also exists in there as well too. And it's what we refer to as the contributing pigmentation. Okay? When you use a permanent color, you are exposing, you are removing the surface color, you are exposing that underlining pigment, that contributing pigment, and then you are directly attacking and changing that contributing pigment with a tonal value. And that tonal value is either going to enhance or it's going to diffuse or control, the warmth in your hair. And you're going to end up with an ashy result, or you're going to end up with a cool result. When you're using a demi, when you're using a deposit only and a demi are just synonymous terms. They mean the same. It's the same thing. You are not you're not attacking and removing that underlining pigment. You are combining and blending with that contributing pigment, with that
which I
underlining
find a
pigment.
benefit if you're going darker.
It's a
For my purpose.
benefit in a way because it can be used as an anchor point. Colors like magnets. The molecule of a color is gonna attract to another color, and it's gonna hold and it's gonna link up. It's gonna attract to each other and
So you can
create a
add color
bond.
without taking out color.
You could definitely add color without taking out color. So in your example, what you're saying is, how do you make a product that's only designed to last 4 weeks or 6 weeks? How do you get it to last longer? How do you physically push that color in deeper into the hair to make it last longer is really the workaround that you're asking for. Because technically speaking, the answer is just flat out no. Because there's no catalyst in there, whereas like in permanent color, the catalyst would be ammonia or a substitute to ammonia, which is like MEA or AMP or something like that. And then that's a whole nother freaking argument in itself. People trying to tell me ammonia is not natural and it's bad and blah, 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 which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But anyways, the trying to take a demi-permanent color and trying to see how much of that you can fill in. When I teach classes, the example that I use is the street. When you're driving down the road, and I don't know about in Louisiana if you guys got potholes down there and stuff like that, but like in Illinois, for example, because we're in the Midwest, we get the swing climate. We get hot summer, we get snowy winter.
Right, I get it. Lots of potholes.
You got lots of potholes. So depending on how much the road gets beat up or how much your hair shaft gets beat up is going to create, because we all seen the commercials and they got all the scales. It looks like a fish scales, your hair shaft. Yep. So how much of those shingles on the roof or the fish scales or however you want to refer to it as, how many potholes do you get in your hair shaft? And
you're saying the more the better for coloring?
Well, you got that much more room to fill in hair color. A healthy hair shaft doesn't have a lot of room in it for a lot of stuff to go in there because it's healthy. It's already filled up. But if your hair is damaged or if your hair is beat up, then you got a little pocket. You got a lot of pockets in there. You got a lot of holes in there. You got a lot of room in there. So now when you're going to actually in that scenario, doing a hair color, a toner, a glaze, a demi-permanent, something is actually going to fill back in those potholes. It's going to fill in that hair shaft and it's actually going to make it better. But then you got more room.
This might be the best argument you've made for something you don't even realize you might have changed your mind.
No, I know exactly, sir. That is the whole reason for freaking clear overglazes, okay? It is getting your hair colored without coloring.
That might be the best argument you made for clear colored yet and didn't even do it on purpose. Because filling in the potholes makes sense to me. Filling in the gaps and grooves. So are you saying that when I put that demi-permanent on my head and fell asleep in the sun, that the sun itself changed to, obviously it opened the cuticle layer of my hair, so it damaged my hair a little bit so that it was able to accept more color? Or am I on the right track there?
So your cuticle, the outer layer of your hair shaft, kind of works like the pores on your skin.
Yeah.
It is in constant flux, contracting and expanding. Any form of heat, whether it's friction, whether it's sunlight, whether it's direct heat from a blow dryer, a lamp, or whatever, any level of heat is going to slightly soften or expand that hair shaft, just like your pores would. Mm-hmm. And as the hair shaft swells, it softens and swells. It just allows the molecule, the pigment molecule, to absorb and deposit a little bit deeper in. Your hair also, being that it's a medium brown, naturally a medium brown, in between a medium to light brown, you have less pigment you in your hair naturally to begin with than somebody who has darker hair. So you naturally have more room in your hair. You have the ability to go darker better because you don't have as much blockage in there. You don't have as much natural pigment in there. Just like when you
Right.
see blondies, what do you call them? Towheads. When you
Go
see
ahead.
natural blondes, right? They just don't have a lot of pigment in their hair to begin with. Albinos. Have you ever gotten a chance to work with an albino?
No.
It's wild. It's really wild. When you get their hair wet, it becomes invisible. It almost looks like they're bald. Like it becomes
Yeah.
iridescent. Iridescent is
I
the
have
word I'm
seen
trying to
that.
say.
And so, and that's interesting because I thought all people's hair stained easily, but you just couldn't
No.
see it on darker hair. But now it's making more sense to me. That's why blondes, like if they want to play around with red Kool-Aid or spill it on their head or swimming, the chemicals turn their hair green, Kool-Aid will turn it red. Or if they use a semi-permanent blue, green,
Rinse,
yellow, red
wash.
in their hair
Yeah.
and they think they're going to wash it out and it doesn't wash out because it actually goes a little deeper on their hair with a blonde because there's more places to fill in.
Right. Right.
That's interesting. So with me, you're saying that it's mostly because of the color of my hair allowed more room for the color pigment to get in, and then the heat opened it up. So I had a few things helping me out.
It's texture. So you have straight hair. Some people, texture is straight, wavy, or curly. You
Right.
have straight hair. Straight hair is going to be easier to receive color because it's more oval. Whereas wavy to curly hair, the hair starts getting more like a circle, more round. So when color goes over it, it just kind of rolls right off. Think of like a ball.
Mhm.
Can't really. It's hard to balance something on top of a ball. But if you have more
Right.
like a sphere or like a spiral, it's easier to balance things on there. So you can fit more things on there. So that's your texture. Then your density. If you have a little bit of hair or if you have a lot of hair, or if you have a normal medium amount of hair too. So that's going to resist how much uh, swelling or opening your hair, how easily it's going to be to open your hair shaft. And then you got the porosity, the condition of your hair. If if your hair is healthy, it's going to be a little bit tighter. It's not going to open up as much, or it's not going to be so quick to open up. Whereas if your hair is damaged, if you have bad porosity, then your hair is thirsty. It's going to absorb, it's going to suck in and absorb as much as it can. The human body is an amazing ecosystem, man. It will do everything it can to bring itself back to a neutral, back to the middle, back to level. And if there's this reverse porosity, if you're so far gone, if you are so damaged, your hair is just an angry kid that just doesn't care right now. You could try to give it whatever it wants and it's just going to reject and spit up everything that you throw at it. It's really wild. Yeah, hair color is fun.
So
Science
that
is
is
fun.
interesting. So I had never, in all these years, I thought deposit only color could be a permanent color also. I didn't realize you pretty much have to remove some color to put some in to call it permanent. And when you say permanent, I mean, technically it should be staying on there till the hair's cut off,
Correct. And that's what
but,
happens. See, this is the problem. What
but it does
happens
fade. But color fades.
does
You want
not
to touch on
fade.
that a little bit?
So
Huh?
color does not. Okay, now I know the comment section is going to freaking blow up on me.
That's good. I love it.
Permanent
Color doesn't.
color does not fade. What permanent color does is it diffuses natural melanin and it replaces it with artificial pigment. That artificial pigment in Oh, I love your tangents. Thank you for loving my tangents. We got a comment. I'm like, wait, what is there?
I'm reading. I'm
Uh,
reading.
right.
People are texting me about this right now.
So permanent color does not fade. It replaces the natural pigment. It deposits the artificial pigment. That artificial pigment embeds itself into the hair shaft. That's it. It's in there. Done. That is now your pigment. If that faded off, your hair would become iridescent. You would just become a towhead. You become a blonde or an
So
albino.
what's happening when people say their color fade?
Color does two things. It obviously colors like its job is, but then it also conditions the hair as well. And that conditioning effect seals the cuticle. And when you seal the cuticle, that gives you a level of shine, vibrancy, and intensity because your cuticle is now sealed. When light hits a flat surface, it bounces off a flat surface. That's why people with straight hair have shiny hair. People with wavy and naturally wavy, naturally curly hair always struggle with shine because their hair is more round. So when light hits it, it doesn't deflect off of it. It kind of bends around it, and wavy and curly hair absorbs sunlight. So it's a lot of more work to create vibrancy, intensity, and shine in wavy and curly hair. With that said, with using that same analogy, when you color somebody's hair with permanent color, when the surface of the hair shaft, the outer layer, the cuticle, gets beat up due to wear and tear, whether it's natural friction, blow drying, flat ironing, heat, deficiency or protein deficiency over time, your age, your health, how much you're outside and photosynthesizing from the sun and everything else, how much oxidation you're in chemicals, blah, 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 blah. You lose the surface layer of your vibrancy, intensity, and shine, the conditioning effect that color does to the hair. But the color itself does not fade. What happens in some cases when clients come in, permanent color has a level and it has a tonal value.
Yep.
And that level is how light or dark you are. And the tonal value is what tone you are, is the contributing pigment. That's where that underlining pigment comes in. So due to wear and tear, how much of that tonal value are you exposing? And how are you playing nice with it to enhance it? Or excuse me, are you playing nice with it to control it? Or are you beating the crap out of your hair and now you're enhancing that contributing pigment? And depending on what level you are, that's where the level of brassiness is going to show through. And this is where clients come in and be like, oh, see, my color faded and now I look red, now I look orange, now I look gold, now I look whatever undesired result they're looking. And that's
Right.
where it's up to the colorist, to the stylist, to come in and say, all right, we have to touch up your new growth. It's, the how much hair has grown in. And then we got to pull it through to refresh the ends. And this is where all the freaking chaos comes from. So before I say this, let me ask you, in your opinion, is it okay? It's a yes or no. Okay. Is it okay to pull permanent color through the ends, through the midshaft and the ends of the hair?
We do it.
No, I know what stylists do. I'm not saying what is done behind the chair. I'm saying, is it okay to do so?
So you're saying we shouldn't pull permanent color through to the ends.
Correct.
Use Demi.
Correct. When you freshly color somebody's hair, their natural new growth, their roots, right?
Right.
When you color that, now you have permanently changed. That is not virgin hair, no more. That's got to grow, and that becomes the cold shaft, the mid shaft, the ends, zone 2, zone 3. I don't care how how you want to say it, right?
Right.
That was ammonia. That was peroxide. That was oxidation. That
Sure.
has remnants of it that exist. When you pull permanent color through the ends, you are oxidizing those ends. You are asking for it. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like my little brother would come and punch me and I'd say, knock it off, I'm going to hit you. And then he'd, like an idiot, he'd come and hit me again. So I'd flick him, and then he'd come and hit me again, and then I'd punch him, and then he'd go crying. Like, you're asking for it. Why? Why are you doing this?
You're saying that those mid-shaft ends is only losing its surface color, so it only needs surface color, basically.
It only needs surface color back again. So when you're pulling permanent color through those ends, you're trying to reprocess permanent color. Permanent color diffuses natural melanin to make room for artificial pigment. That's it. That's why color doesn't lift color, because when there's artificial pigment on the ends, midshaft and ends, and you're pulling through permanent color through the midshaft and the ends, there is no natural melanin to be diffused anymore. So you've got artificial pigment fighting with artificial pigment. They're having WrestleMania. There's nothing to do. Nobody's going to win.
I think the argument most hairdressers would make is, we don't really care about the lift part of it, but we just want that. Look at your face.
Because I know this argument. It's the dumbest argument.
We just want the deposit. We just want to add a little bit more of that color deposit, and we're waiting towards the end. So isn't that ammonia kind of getting close to the end of its life in the bowl anyway? And so if we just use what's left over in the bowl to pull through to the end, we're just using the deposit part of the pigment that's still left in the color.
Yeah.
No?
The first 18 minutes of your processing time is your window of alkalinity. That is your initial lift and oxidation. That is when ammonia is the most active.
Okay.
The rest of your processing time is focusing on deposit, sealing, and toning. But that
I think you just made my argument.
Listen, let me finish, sir.
Go
No,
ahead.
your argument is so null and void, because just because the ammonia isn't at its peak anymore after the first 18 minutes doesn't mean that it's still not in there.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
It's still there. You're giving a drunk person coffee. You're not curing the hangover. You're just making their drunkenness more freaking exciting. You're enhancing. You're giving energy. They were down. They were crashing. And now you've given them their second wind.
Right.
So
let them go to sleep.
Let them go to sleep. That's the whole thing.
So start it again in case RJ wants to pull this out as a clip. Do the first 18 minutes. Start with that again.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go, right? No. It pulling color through the ends with permanent color doesn't work. Waiting for your color the strength of your color to die out and then pull it through doesn't work, because the first 18 minutes of your processing time is called your window of alkalinity. That is your oxidation. That is when the ammonia in permanent color is working at its peak strength. After the first 18 minutes, the rest of your processing time is focusing on deposit, conditioning, and sealing, toning. That's what it's focusing on. So pulling through permanent color to refresh permanent color is the worst idea you can do, because you're just, the remnants, just because it's not at its peak anymore, it's still there. And so you're just processing processed hair, which is equaling damage. You think you're helping it, but you're not.
So use Demi Permanent to refresh.
Demi Permanent is deposit only. That's why it exists. It has no ammonia to begin with. It's taken the back end of the process and it's bottled it up in a nice little package for you, so you can safely pull that through and get the full maximum effect of your tonal value, of your deposit pigment dye load, your conditioning, sealing, and smoothing effect that you're going to get out of hair color.
I learned something today. This is good. I like it.
This is why clear, zero stroke, zero clear is such an important part in our toolbox. It is really a vital tool. It has so many uses. Okay, look, to you,
the main one is a scam.
If I say to you duct tape and zip ties, is it a necessity? Is it a staple necessity, or is it a scam?
No, everybody should have duct tape and zip ties in their
zero
backpack.
Stroke, zero clear is your zip ties and your duct tape of hair color. It'll fix everything. Fixes everything.
That's so crazy.
You fight me on this all the time. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, where is the comment section? I need the comment section to blow up on 0 stroke 00. You could use
I
it to
need people to
diffuse
say,
colors to
do you
make
believe
half
in
levels.
clear or not? Can you see a difference after you put clear on or not? Or is it
Absolutely.
just, you know, I would say so many offensive things right here. Like I don't, I don't believe. It's like all those things. Like, oh man, I can't talk about superstition because people do or don't have strong feelings about that. I want to talk about, I want to talk about so many things, but I think that clear is the power of suggestion. I think it's like, oh, that it we did clear on her head. I bet if you did 10 people, five you actually did clear on, five you didn't, and you said you did clear on all of them, people would say they all looked better because you did clear. And
Let
I
me
would
ask you
say,
this way.
we just flat ironed them.
Let me ask you this way. Why do you understand permanent color? Why do you agree and understand and accept that permanent color has ammonia and peroxide? It creates oxidation. That's the process. That's how it works. It lifts and deposits. You can agree with
Yep.
that. You can
Yep.
also equally agree that demi-permanent color is deposit only. You can agree
Yep.
and believe that. So basically, it's taking all the lifting action of permanent color and it's just giving you the back end, the depositing only factor, right?
Got it.
Okay, so why can't you believe that clear is basically the same exact thing without pigmentation, but it's giving you all the benefit of a deposit only color just without the coloring part of it, but all the conditioning, sealing, and like,
It might not
why can't you
be
believe
so
that part?
much about a belief. I feel like it's a scam, a
Why?
con.
But why?
Because how can you sell some? It's like selling an invisibility cloak. It's like you don't see it. How do you sell it? That's how I feel about it.
Why do you color your hair to match your same natural color?
Because some of those hairs have faded lighter colors, like these little pieces here. And if I bring it all to the same color, it seems to look healthier, richer because it's more solid. And our eyes tend to like solid unless we have specific highlight. I mean, there's a lot of arguments here. Some people think highlights look better, but
So
it's changing the lighter color toward making it all even.
it's
That's
making it
why.
more even,
But with
right?
but with clear, it doesn't change the color at
It
all.
doesn't change the color, but it still strengthens, it still enhances, and it still brings up your color.
I don't see it. I've seen people do it all the time. They'll say I just did clear, a glaze, a gloss, and a look, and I think, nope,
Do you believe in
looks the same.
moisturizer
And maybe,
for your
yeah, to
hands or for
me,
your skin?
no, I don't like greasy, slimy stuff on my face. But on hair, yes, I get silicones, conditioners, deep treatments to make the hair feel softer, and I can brush through it easier. So I know there's something on there filling in those potholes you speak of. But with a clear color, I don't know.
Oh,
I feel
you tan.
you can feel the difference
When you tan, don't you
when I
get
tan.
base? Don't you get a base first before you get your full burn in or whatever tanning is called? I really tan. You can see I'm such an expert on tanning, right? I don't go out in the
No,
sun. It's the
but when
same.
you,
It's the same
yeah,
thing.
I'm of
I
the
don't
opinion.
understand how I can't get you to understand.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, oh yeah, maybe it did something, but to me it's like a clear coat, so it's clear. So what's the point? I feel like color is supposed to change the color. If you're gonna
Oh,
just if you're
yes.
gonna
You made your table. You made your table with the
last
epoxy, with the color epoxy. Then you put the clear epoxy over the top, right? What? There you go, sir. There it is.
and it's more glossy. So you feel like a clear actually leaves like a clear surface on the hair and makes
Mwah.
it.
Thank you.
I just don't.
100%.
I just don't see it. I've seen people do it, and I look at it, and I'm thinking it doesn't look any different. Maybe it's a maybe they're using
Oh,
a
man, you
matte
cracked me up.
matte finish clear instead of a gloss coat clear. Is it matte or gloss or semi-gloss?
It can be whatever you want. You can adjust it. You can custom. That's the beautiful creativity of what we do. That's the artistry of what we do.
As you can just tell them it's what you want them to believe, and then they believe you and pay for it.
I hate you.
We should end this now.
Did you have any
I
other
don't-
color questions, sir, or is this the tail end of what you got?
This is it. This is
It's,
it. I
it's
like
just it's
it.
just that this
Good.
is why I don't need coffee because buy Bernard a coffee. He needs energy. I just need this blood
know.
pressure. I
Buy
just
me a
I just get
coffee.
stressed out from Bernard's insanity.
Buy me a coffee. Thanks for your chat.
All right, we
I
are
just
ending
learned,
it then. That's
learned
what we're
something
ending it on.
today.
Yeah. Let me know in the comments section a couple of things. Did anything I say make any sense today? And please, for the love of God, correct this man. Do a better job than me to explain why
Good one.
clear is a thing. We go through this every other live that we do. It comes up. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week. Hey, Casper. You should put it clear on Casper.
Yeah. We should